Hi everyone, so I'm Matt here at Paul Consultancy. Today I'm joined on my left over here by Harry Toole. Say hello, Harry.
Hello, hello.
Harry's our apprentice here at Paul Nyman. And yeah, look, we just thought we'd have a bit of a conversation today for the benefit of anyone that's considering taking on an apprentice. With that in mind then, Harry, what were your expectations coming into this originally then last year?
So originally I was fairly uncertain as to sort of how much responsibility I'd sort of be able to take on. I didn't expect much sort of to begin with, being a sort of new employee to the business. But I didn't just want to sort of come into business and be sort of the person that made drinks, if you like. I soon realised sort of after a while that I would be sort of trusted with a fairly large amount of responsibility, which has sort of been good for me. It's been good to sort of get an insight into what sort of business is all about. I'm glad to have been able to take on that responsibility, which was sort of ideal for me as sort of my aim for the future was to secure a full time role at the end of my apprenticeship, sort of come February of next year.
Oh, super. And I think certainly since I've been here, it seems like there's an element of sort of best way to learn's in the deep end, isn't there?
Yeah, certainly. So I guess sort of there is, like they say, practice makes perfect. It's sort of getting on with sort of the work that people who are in the business who aren't sort of apprentices are getting on. That's sort of the best way to learn. For anyone, I would have thought. I think being sort of guided by sort of other staff from the business has been good. It's been good to sort of learn sort of techniques and sort of methods, the way we do stuff. But no, yeah, definitely. If you say going in at the deep end, yeah, it's something that I have enjoyed, sort of taking on that responsibility. But no, I've certainly learned a lot since starting back in September of last year.
And just, I guess, with that, just explain well, for me and for the benefit of anyone watching, how the training side of things sort of sits. Obviously, sort of day to day, what I see, you're very much working alongside us, doing sort of the same as a lot of the members of the team here. Where does your training sit within that then?
Yeah, so sometimes you don't sort of realise when you are receiving training. However, it is sort of you are learning new stuff every day. But 1 year into my apprenticeship, and I'm still learning sort of new methods and techniques and whatnot, sort of building up industry knowledge. But training comes sort of in so many different forms, so you don't necessarily have to sit down one to one with your boss and then get you to write stuff out on notepads and whatnot. You sort of pick things up as you go along, just sort of sitting in the office and listening to sort of other people on the phone, sort of the way that they do things. You pick up stuff this way as well, which is a good form of training. In terms of sort of the sort of education side of it, I'm set sort of coursework monthly, which sort of complete and then submit to my apprenticeship provider. That sort of ties in well with the work that I'm doing, because it's all sort of relevant, all business industry knowledge, business sort of related work. So yeah, sort of you are sort of learning while you're sort of gaining work experience as well, which is I guess sort of the best of both worlds.
Oh, super. And what does it? So obviously there you mentioned sort of being the best of both worlds of training and the practical sense. And so what does that look like? What does it consist of for you then, obviously?
So sort of in a practical sense, actually getting on with the work, getting on with sort of work that's sort of business related, that is actually affecting the business, sort of having that role to play within the business. For me, being sort of a researcher, I am sort of having a direct impact on sort of the performance of the business. So learning that way is good. And like I say, yeah, sort of the educational side of it as well. It's sort of good to have that, just to sort of put you back in a bit of a situation that other apprentices are probably more familiar to. So like a more of a learning environment, more of a sort of clearer learning environment. However, I think for me personally, the most benefit I've got out of it is definitely learning practically. Definitely good sort of looking at sort of following Paul, seeing how he does things, or having them sessions with him where we're going through sort of techniques and sort of little bits that he knows. But no, yeah, I think that's sort of a positive behind it as well.
Super. I think maybe a piece to take away from that, and certainly would it be fair to say in your experience, the more exposure you can get within the business, the better it's been for you, and maybe a nod to a piece of advice for potentially someone looking to bring on apprentices, really chuck them into the team and the day-to-day and expose them to as much as they can.
Yeah, certainly. So I think if someone was sort of looking at bringing an apprentice in, and just sort of giving them sort of little bits to do here and there where they're not really seeing much sort of industry or much sort of the business side of things, I don't think they would sort of get the best out of people. I think sort of bringing them into the team and sort of including them in all sort of the day-to-day duties of the job, I think that's definitely sort of how you would get the best out of an apprentice. I can say for myself that I have definitely learned a lot this way, and I certainly enjoyed it. Yeah.
Oh, cool one. Where do you see sort of long term for you then? Just a valuable bit of insight, sort of looking in. Where do you see it taking you then long term? I know you've mentioned that the goal is then to secure a full-time role at the end of it. Wider to that then, what does it do for you, and where do you want to go with it, I guess?
Yeah, I think sort of the wider sort of getting the full-time position at the end of it, I think sort of it has been sort of a bit of a building block to the start of my career. So getting sort of these sort of work skills under my belt, and sort of being able to take them into sort of future sort of career, whatever that may bring. I think being able to sort of have that experience of working within a company and sort of seeing how things go from a day to day has definitely sort of been worthwhile, and that's a good sort of piece of experience to have for me, being sort of someone that's upcoming into the industry, if you like.
Oh, super. And what have you made of the journey so far then? Obviously you're not actually now too far away from completion. What do you make of things so far?
So the journey so far has been enjoyable. Definitely sort of understand a lot more sort of business knowledge than I did sort of coming out of college. I think sort of, as we previously mentioned, being thrown in at the deep end, it's been sort of really effective for me. It's sort of left me to sort of find my feet and work out sort of how things in the business world sort of work. Obviously with guidance from colleagues, etc. But no, journey enjoyable, very enjoyable. I found that sort of every day is different. That sort of brings a skill in itself, and sort of how to deal with situations that you might not necessarily have dealt with before, or you might not necessarily feel comfortable in. But no, certainly enjoyed it so far.
Oh, super. And just to sort of tie things up then for anyone that's considering taking on an apprentice, and I think we've got a valuable insight there as to your point of view on things and how it's gone for you and some of the value it brings to the apprentice. What would be your advice to anyone out there that's maybe watching this, that's thinking about bringing on an apprentice themselves?
Yeah, I think sort of an apprentice can be a benefit to sort of all sorts of different businesses. It's bringing that sort of fresh mind from the education sector and allowing sort of you as an employer to tailor that person into sort of how you want them to work. It's sort of like a blank canvas, really. Someone who's not done any sort of work in this type of industry or sort of seen the business side of work. Like I say, it's allowing you to sort of shape that person into sort of the way that you want them to work, which I think sort of comes as a benefit to anyone that would be looking at bringing an apprentice on.
Yeah, I think some good pointers. I think I agree. There's a lot of benefit, isn't there, to being able to bring someone who's just starting their career out into their business, when we see a lot of, I mean, we deal with it, don't we, in our roles, a lot of requirements for obviously previous experience, but actually sometimes when someone is on that first rung of the career ladder, you have an opportunity to shape them into your culture, because you're not working against previous sort of mindsets and things like that. It's a blank canvas, and you can really, if you capture the right person in that, and it works both ways, then you've got someone who's potentially real long-term benefit for you as someone employing within business, an apprentice. So yeah, look, I think there's a lot of things to consider, isn't there, when bringing on an apprentice, but I think we've got a real insight there from an apprentice's point of view as to some of the benefits, some of the things to consider. And yeah, look, I hope to anyone watching that it's been insightful to that degree. And obviously any further questions on your experience, I'm sure you'd be more than happy to field them. And
yeah, certainly.
As always, if we can sort of supply any more info in any way, then feel free to get in touch with the team here, and more than happy to pick up a conversation on how an apprentice could maybe benefit your business. Whilst it's not something we deal with directly, it's part of the wider growth plan for business, isn't it? So yeah, super. Look, thanks for your time today, Harry. We'll be back on the YouTube soon for something. Yeah. Look, we'll speak again soon.
Yeah. All right. See you soon.